Some goodbyes are loud, but the ones that echo forever are silent. That's the one that hurts the most, my friends. Not the tearful ending, not the final message, not even the slammed door. It's when they vanish quietly. No closure, no warning, no goodbye. Just gone, as if you never existed. And that kind of silence, it doesn't just hurt, it haunts. It leaves your heart pacing in an empty room, looking for footprints that were never there. This is the silent exit that hurts more than any final goodbye. And today, we're about to flip that pain into power. Hey folks, imagine this. Imagine you're watching a magician on stage. The lights are dim, the tension thick. Everyone's waiting for the big dramatic finale. And just when you expect fireworks, poof, they vanish into smoke. No applause, no bow, just gone. That's what some people do in your life. They don't give you the dignity of a goodbye. They give you an exit so quiet, it makes your soul ache louder than any words ever could. And let me be real with you. That silence, it messes with your head. You start wondering if it even happened. Did I imagine the connection? Was I ever loved? Did I matter at all? And the cruelest part, you start blaming yourself for how someone else chose to leave. But here's the truth, my friends, and I need you to let this one burn through the lies. People don't disappear because you weren't valuable. They disappear because they couldn't handle the value you brought. Think of yourself like a rare book, ancient, deep, priceless. But not everyone can read your language. Some people flip through your pages looking for pictures, and when they don't understand your depth, they walk away quietly. Not because you weren't worth reading, but because they never had the capacity to understand your story. People love loud exits because they give room for drama, ego, and false control. But a silent exit? That's an act of emotional cowardice. And I know it stings. I know it leaves a bruise shaped like a question mark. But let me tell you something that might shift everything. You didn't get a goodbye because you didn't need one. You got a silent exit because life needed to end that chapter before you wrote yourself out of your own book. My friends, we've been taught to believe that closure comes from other people, that healing requires a final conversation, that it only becomes real when someone says, "I'm sorry." But that's a lie. Closure isn't given, it's chosen. It happens the moment you stop waiting for answers and start remembering who the hell you are. So if you're sitting there wondering why they never said goodbye, maybe you should start asking, why am I still holding the door open for someone who snuck out the back? Why am I waiting at the station for someone who missed the train on purpose? The pain you feel right now is not weakness. It's proof you care deeply. But now it's time to care just as deeply about yourself. Because while they left in silence, you're about to rise with thunder. You're not here to beg, chase, or break. You're here to rebuild. Quietly, powerfully, unshakably. Let their silence be your siren. Let it call you back home, to yourself. Say it with me in the comments. I choose my peace. Type it, believe it, own it. And if you're ready to stop waiting on an apology that will never come, press that like button, hit subscribe, and stay with me. Because we're just getting started. Number 1, silence doesn't end things. It echoes them. They didn't say goodbye, and somehow that screamed louder than any "I hate you" ever could. That's what they don't tell you, my friends, that the loudest goodbyes aren't shouted, they're whispered, or worse, they're never spoken at all. One day, they're there, laughing, texting, sharing pieces of themselves like forever was a real thing. And the next day, gone. No explanation, no closure, just this deafening silence that wraps around your soul like a fog you can't walk through. And here's what makes it worse. When someone walks away and doesn't tell you why, your mind doesn't shut off. It turns on, it spins, it creates stories. It fills in the gaps with fear, with guilt, with questions that claw at your peace like, what did I do wrong? Was I too much? Not enough? Did they ever care at all? Imagine you're watching your favorite show, deeply invested in the storyline, the characters, the hope, and right before the final episode, the screen just goes black. No credits, no closure, just nothing. You sit there, stunned, rewinding everything in your head, trying to find meaning in the last words, the last glance, the last gesture. That's what a silent exit feels like. And the worst part, you start thinking you're crazy for wanting an ending that never came. But you're not crazy. You're human. And being human means needing something to hold on to, even if it's just a final word. The truth is, silence doesn't end the pain. It spreads it. It turns it into echoes. You replay every little detail like a detective at a crime scene. But the more you search, the more empty it feels. Because they didn't leave you with answers. They left you with a mess. And now you're left cleaning it up, alone. But let me break the lie they made you swallow, that their silence means you weren't worth the goodbye. No, my friends, their silence wasn't a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their fear, because only cowards leave quietly. Only those who lack emotional depth avoid confrontation. They didn't leave because you weren't lovable. They left because you loved them in a way that required accountability, and they didn't have the courage to give it. It's easy to think that if someone doesn't say goodbye, maybe they weren't really there in the first place, but that's not true either. Some people are fully present while being emotionally absent the whole time. They smile, they say the right words, they hold you close. But the moment you need something real, the moment you ask for clarity or consistency, they shrink. And when they can't meet you where you are, they vanish, not out of strength, but out of panic. You might be sitting there thinking, maybe if I had said less, maybe if I gave more, maybe if I stayed quieter, smaller, easier to love. But that's the trap. That's the illusion they left behind. You keep replaying the story, hoping for a different ending. But the truth is, they ended it when they stopped showing up, not when they stopped speaking. Silence is a decision too. And here's where it gets heavy, but it gets freeing. Their silence isn't just absence, it's avoidance. Avoidance of accountability, avoidance of truth, avoidance of facing a version of themselves they couldn't control around someone who saw them too clearly. You saw their wounds, you saw their patterns, you asked for honesty. And rather than rise to meet your clarity, they sank into silence. But what if I told you this moment, the ache, the confusion, the unanswered questions, isn't here to break you. It's here to build you. Because only in silence do you truly hear yourself. Only when everything external goes quiet do you get to listen to the whisper of your own worth again. This pain you're feeling, it's sacred. Not because it feels good, but because it's revealing what you've outgrown. You're not here to chase people who exit quietly. You're here to honor the version of you who deserved answers, but decided to heal anyway. You were never supposed to beg for clarity. You were supposed to create it. And now you do. Not by reaching back, not by sending that long message or checking their stories, but by sitting in your own presence, by realizing that not all stories end with punctuation. Some just fade out, and that fading out, it's still an ending. You don't need a goodbye to start your healing. You need a decision to stop giving people who went silent a voice in your head, a decision to reclaim the space they left behind with something louder, your peace, your presence, your power. So here's what I want you to do right now. Not for them, for you. Say it out loud. Write it in the comments. I don't chase echoes, I become the voice. Let the world hear you. Let yourself hear you. Because this silence, it didn't destroy you, it awakened you. And what's coming next? It's the part where you no longer need to be chosen to feel complete. You choose yourself. You choose peace over explanation, strength over begging, dignity over answers. Stay with me, because next, we talk about the kind of exit that says more about them than it ever did about you. And why disappearing doesn't free them from the weight. They just carry it in silence. Number 2, the most dangerous exit is the one they never mention. People don't always leave with a bang. Some just slowly vanish, hoping you never notice the silence they left behind. That's the most painful part, isn't it? Not the argument, not the fight, not the slam of a door or a blocked number. No, it's the slow fade. The unanswered texts, the shift in tone, the way their name still sits in your phone, but their presence is long gone. It's not even the loss that hurts, it's the confusion that comes with it. It's the way they disappeared without the decency to tell you they were leaving. That's the kind of exit that shatters you from the inside out. Quietly. See, my friends, cowards don't always run. They slip out quietly. They hope you won't notice, or worse, they know you'll notice, but they just don't care. And that's the wound they never talk about, the one they leave behind when they don't even have the courage to close the door they opened. It's like this. Imagine someone walking into your house, living there for months, making a mess, leaving fingerprints on every wall, whispering promises in the dark, and then one day you wake up and they're gone. No note, no explanation, just the echo of their laughter in a room that still smells like them. And somehow you're left cleaning the mess, blaming yourself for the way they vanished, wondering if maybe you drove them away. Let me stop you right there. You didn't. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because you were too real. And real scares people who've spent their whole lives pretending. You asked for honesty, and they weren't ready. You asked for consistency, and they panicked. You gave them space to be themselves, and they realized they didn't even know who that was. The most dangerous exit isn't the one that comes after a fight. It's the one that comes with silence. It's the one you don't see coming. It's the one that makes you question your own memories. Were they ever really there? Did I imagine the connection? Was it all fake? Those aren't your thoughts. Those are the ghosts they left behind, whispering lies to keep you from waking up. But you're waking up now. You're starting to see that silence isn't just absence. It's a statement. It's a decision. People who leave without a word think they're avoiding damage. But what they're really doing is confirming who they are. And who they are is someone who can't face discomfort. Someone who can't say, "This isn't working," or "I'm not ready," or "I don't know how to love you." So they vanish. They pretend to be busy. They dodge your calls. They post those fake happy photos like nothing happened. But deep down they know what they did. They know the damage they caused. And no matter how well they hide it, silence is still a mirror, one they have to look into every time they're alone. And here's the part that stings. They wanted you to notice. Oh yes, they wanted you to feel the shift, to chase, to spiral, to beg. Because that gives them power. That tells them, I mattered. But what they didn't expect was for you to stop calling, for you to stop asking, for you to sit in the silence and own it. That's the part that breaks them. Not your rage, not your words, your peace, your decision to no longer chase people who vanish without a trace. It's not your job to go digging for people who buried themselves. You are not an archaeologist searching for broken souls in the ruins of dead conversations. You are not a code breaker trying to translate mixed signals into clarity. If someone wants to leave your life, let them, but don't you dare let their silence speak louder than your truth. You showed up, you gave, you asked, You stayed present, and if someone still couldn't give you the bare minimum of a conversation, that's not on you. That's on them. That's on their inability to show up as a whole human being. That's on their fear, their pattern, their self-sabotage. And I know it hurts. I know it keeps you up at night. But my friend, what hurts now will heal later, because this pain is not weakness. It's a scar being stitched with wisdom. You don't need them to say goodbye to begin again. You don't need their explanation to understand that you were worth more than a disappearing act. Because the truth is, they didn't reject you. They rejected the reflection of themselves they saw in your presence. You didn't scare them because you were flawed. You scared them because you were true. Say it with me in the comments. I will not chase what chooses to disappear. Write it, type it. Let it be your shield the next time silence tries to sneak back into your soul. Let it be your sword when confusion starts whispering again. You are not lost. You are not abandoned. You are being redirected. And what's coming next is the version of you that no longer waits for closure, but becomes it. Stay with me, because next, we talk about how every silent exit was actually a divine removal, and how what feels like rejection is often protection dressed in stillness. Number 3, you weren't left, you were freed. Some people don't walk away to hurt you. They walk away because your presence exposed everything they weren't ready to face. You think you were abandoned. You think they left you behind like a forgotten book, a closed chapter, something disposable. But what if I told you, you were never left at all? You were freed, quietly, painfully, powerfully. And yes, I know it didn't feel like that when it first happened. I know it felt like betrayal wrapped in silence. I know it felt like rejection dressed as absence. But my friend, that's just the illusion. Because the truth is far more liberating than the lie they left you with. See, when someone exits your life without warning, without reason, without the decency of a goodbye, you don't just question them, you start questioning you. You replay every interaction, every word, every message, wondering what you could have done differently. You shrink yourself in hindsight. You try to fit into the mold they were never honest about. But stop, right here, right now. Breathe and hear this with your whole soul. They didn't leave because of who you are. They left because of what you represented. You were real in a world where they were still pretending. You offered truth where they were hiding behind masks. You gave love that required effort, consistency, presence, and they weren't built for that. You weren't abandoned. You were too much light for a soul still clinging to the dark. And the thing about light is, it reveals everything, and they weren't ready to see themselves. Imagine being a wild bird in a tiny cage. They told you to fold your wings, stay still, stop shining so brightly, and for a while, you did. You clipped your own freedom to keep the peace. You softened your voice to make space for their silence. But even caged birds dream of flying. Even silenced hearts whisper. And the day they walked out, what looked like your abandonment was actually the door swinging open, the cage unlatched, the sky calling your name. They didn't leave you empty. They left space for what you actually deserve. The kind of love that doesn't ghost. The kind of connection that doesn't run at the first sign of emotional responsibility. The kind of presence that says, I see you, and means it, every day, not just when it's convenient. And let's be honest for a second. Was it really peaceful when they were there? Or were you just used to the chaos, used to the anxiety, used to holding everything together so it wouldn't fall apart? Because sometimes we think we lost a person when what we really lost was a pattern, a cycle, a storm disguised as something stable. And once the storm clears, the silence reveals everything you refused to see. You didn't lose someone who loved you. You lost someone who needed you more than they valued you. Someone who took from your well but never poured back in. Someone who called your loyalty too much only because they were too empty to match it. That wasn't love. That was survival. That was comfort. That was emotional dependency painted as romance. And you deserved better than that. You still do. But here's the shift. This pain you're feeling, it's not just grief. It's rebirth. This isn't the end of your story. It's the end of a chapter you outgrew. The person you were when they entered your life is not the same person you're becoming now. They weren't strong enough to stay, and you're no longer soft enough to shrink. And that, my friend, is your power. You were not left behind. You were pulled forward. You were released from a bond that was draining you in ways you couldn't even see when you were inside it. And now that you're outside it, now that you've felt the silence and survived it, now that your heart is beating without them in your orbit, you see it, you feel it. You understand that losing them wasn't the tragedy, it was the turning point. And yeah, it's hard. It's hard to watch someone you would have gone to war for disappear like you never mattered. It's hard to sit with all the love you still had left to give and realize they never planned to hold it. It's hard to rebuild your peace from rubble they walked away from, but you can, and you will, because they didn't free you from them. They freed you to return to you. Say it with me in the comments. I wasn't left, I was set free. Let that be the declaration. Let that be the fire you walk into your next chapter with. You're not bitter, you're not broken, you're just done. Done trying to convince someone to see your value. Done begging for clarity from someone who didn't even understand themselves. Done waiting at the door for someone who already left through the window. They thought walking away meant they won, but all they did was hand you back your time, your energy, your magic. And now you rise, quietly, gracefully, powerfully, not to prove a point, but because freedom feels better than false security. Stay with me, because what we uncover next will make you realize you don't need their closure. You are the closure. And what walked away? It couldn't hold what you were becoming. Number 4, closure isn't something they give, it's something you decide. Waiting for closure from the person who broke you is like asking the storm to explain why it destroyed your home. You're not alone if you've caught yourself staring at your phone, wondering if one day they'll text, not to say they love you, not even to ask you back, just to explain, just to admit it, just to say something that makes the pain make sense. That's what we crave, right? An ending that feels neat, a sentence that wraps it all up, a little clarity to hold in our hands like a bandage for the wound they left. But the truth? That closure you're waiting for, it may never come. And maybe, just maybe, it was never supposed to. They won't always come back with the apology you deserved. They won't always own up to the damage they caused, not because they don't know, not because they didn't feel it, but because doing so would require them to face a version of themselves they're still running from. It would force them to admit they hurt someone who only wanted to love them right. And let's be honest, most people aren't ready for that level of truth. They'd rather protect their image than make peace with their impact. So they go quiet. They move on. They pretend. They tell themselves stories that help them sleep at night. It wasn't that deep. We just weren't compatible. They were too emotional. But deep down, they know. They know you showed up with your whole heart. They know you kept trying long after they checked out. They know they left you in a mess and walked away like nothing happened. That's why they can't face you. That's why you never got that final talk. Because if they looked you in the eye and told the truth, they'd have to carry it. And people like that, they're not built for weight. They're built for running. But let me tell you something that might shift your soul. Closure isn't a conversation. Closure is a decision. It's not what they say. It's what you decide you're no longer waiting for. It's the moment you stop needing their voice to silence the noise in your head. It's the morning you wake up and realize their silence no longer controls your peace. Closure doesn't come when they admit they were wrong. It comes when you admit you were right to leave the door closed. It comes when you finally stop refreshing their page, stop checking the timestamp on that last message, stop replaying the final day like it's going to suddenly change the ending, because it won't. That's the hardest part. Accepting that some people will hurt you and never acknowledge it. They will vanish, thrive on pretense, and never give you the validation you were craving. But that doesn't mean you weren't worthy of it. It just means they were never capable of giving it. And I get it. This kind of acceptance feels heavy. It feels unfair. Like, how can someone walk away from the chaos they created and still sleep at night while you're left picking up the emotional debris? But here's the shift. It's not your job to carry the lesson for them. It's your job to learn from it, for you. Because healing doesn't come from their words, it comes from your silence, from the way you choose to rise without their help, from the way you stop needing the fire to apologize for burning you and start building something beautiful from the ashes. Imagine closure like this: a door with no knob on their side. Only you can lock it. Only you can walk away. Only you can say, "This is where it ends." Not because you told me, but because I told myself. That's not weakness. That's evolution. That's what it means to reclaim your peace in a world that tried to leave it in pieces. You don't need one last conversation to be whole again. You don't need their explanation to trust your own experience. You were there. You felt the shift. You know what was real. Don't let their denial rewrite your memory. Don't let the silence fool you into thinking it didn't matter. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't be hiding from it. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't be here rebuilding your strength like this. Say it with me in the comments: I choose closure. Not because they gave it, but because you did. Say it like a vow, because the most powerful people are the ones who learn to let go without needing the ones who left to explain why. That's not giving up, that's growing up, that's taking your story back. You're not broken because they didn't finish the chapter. You're wiser because you wrote the rest without them. Stay with me. Because in the next part, we talk about how not replying, how holding your peace instead of pleading your case is the loudest kind of closure they'll ever hear. And trust me, it echoes longer than words ever could. Number 5, the power of unreplied goodbyes. Not responding isn't silence. It's self-respect, speaking louder than their last word ever could. There's something deeply powerful, almost terrifying, about a goodbye that doesn't get a reply, not a message, not a reaction, not even a sigh, just a void where your energy used to rush in and fix, explain, comfort. But not this time. This time, you didn't chase. You didn't reach. You didn't try to make sense of the mess they made. You just watched them walk and let the door close behind them without saying a word. And that silence, that's the kind of silence that haunts people. See, most people don't say goodbye expecting it to be the last time. They say it like a test, like a soft threat, like a bait. They send that "take care" or that cold, cryptic message expecting you to unravel, to fold, to panic and plead. And when you don't, when you let it sit there, unread or unanswered, their ego starts to rot. Not because you were cruel, but because you refused to play the role they wrote for you. They wanted you to break. They needed you to beg, because that gives them control. It gives them the story where they're the strong one, the one who had the final say. But you changed the script. You gave them a kind of silence that doesn't scream. It echoes. And now, while they go about pretending it didn't sting, they're checking their phone more than they want to admit. Scrolling, waiting, wondering if maybe your reply just got lost in the wind. But you know better. You are better, because you're not giving them the satisfaction of a reaction, not out of pride, but out of clarity, because you've finally seen what it costs you to keep replying to people who only reach out to see if they still matter. And here's the part most don't understand. Not every goodbye deserves a response. Some are spoken to hurt, to confuse, to keep the door half open. Some are said with ego dripping off every syllable. And if you respond, if you meet that energy, you feed it. But if you don't, if you just leave it there, hanging, echoing in their empty inbox, that silence becomes a mirror, a reminder that they no longer have access to you. Not replying is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's choosing your peace over their performance. It's saying, I've seen this show before and I'm no longer entertained. It's not a cold shoulder, it's emotional sovereignty. It's choosing not to lower your vibration just to match their inconsistency. Think about this. Imagine someone tossing a match onto a bridge and watching it burn, assuming they can always build it back later. But this time, you didn't wait. You didn't stand on the other side waving. You walked away before the flames even reached you. That's what not replying does. It tells the universe, I'm no longer available for almost maybe or someday. And let's be honest, you've replied enough. You've explained yourself more than enough. You wrote the long messages. You opened your heart. You gave them chances. You forgave when you were still bleeding. But now, it's not about getting the last word. It's about choosing the last piece. You don't need to say, I'm done, when your silence already said it louder. You don't need to prove anything to someone who was never willing to understand you in the first place. Because the most powerful goodbye is the one they have to feel, not the one they get to hear. And here's what's really eating at them now. It's not the goodbye they gave you. It's the goodbye you never gave back. It's the message that never came. The reaction they never got, the attention they used to feed off of, now gone like they never existed. You became unavailable, not just physically, but emotionally, energetically, spiritually. And that, my friend, that's a silence they can't compete with. Say it with me in the comments. My silence closed the door. Let that be your closure. Let that be your armor. Because you don't need to reply to noise when you've already chosen peace. You don't need to defend your value to someone who treated it like a game. You don't need to explain why their breadcrumbs no longer feed you. What they thought was a simple goodbye has become their greatest regret. Not because you were cruel, but because you had the courage to say nothing and mean it. Stay with me. Because next, we're going to pull back the curtain on their fake smiles and hollow posts and reveal the truth behind why they act fine, but feel everything they never dared to say. Number 6, why they act like nothing happened, but feel everything. It's easy to fake peace online, but no filter in the world can hide the war that starts when someone loses real love. They look fine, don't they? Laughing, posting, sharing selfies like their soul isn't suffocating, acting like you never existed, as if all those deep talks, all those quiet moments, all the things you gave that no one else even noticed, meant nothing. And you sit there, watching it all, feeling the sting of their calm, wondering how they moved on so quickly, how they're glowing while you're grieving, how they can smile while you're still trying to breathe through the wreckage they left behind. But let's crack that illusion right open. People don't post their pain, they perform through it. They throw up decoys, stories, new flings, loud captions, cute distractions, because it's not that they're healed, it's that they hope if they look healed long enough, the wound will eventually go numb. That's not peace you're seeing, it's pride. That's not happiness, it's hiding. And the louder they post, the more you should know. They're not fine, they're faking. Because real peace doesn't need to perform. It doesn't need a highlight reel. It sits quietly. It breathes deep. and it doesn't flinch when someone brings up the past. But them, they flinch, internally, constantly, because they remember it all, even if they pretend they don't. They remember the way you stayed, the way you tried, the way you saw them, all of them, and still chose to love what was broken. That's the part that haunts them. That's the part they don't talk about. Imagine this: a house with a fresh coat of paint on the outside, looking brand new from a distance, but inside, termites, cracks in the foundation, a storm coming through the roof. That's what their life is now. Looks good, sounds stable, but deep down, they feel it. They feel the absence of your warmth in the coldest parts of their soul, and nothing they chase is filling that space. See, it was never about your body. It was your presence, the way your energy softened their chaos, the way your patience forgave things they never even said sorry for. You weren't just another person. You were their peace, their mirror, their quiet. And now that it's gone, they feel the dissonance. That little tug at 2 a.m., that ache in their chest when they hear a song that sounds like you, that weird sadness they can't explain after scrolling your profile, even if they never press like. But they'll never admit it, because admitting they're hurting would be admitting they lost something real. And that means taking responsibility for what they did, for what they didn't do, for the messages they left unread, for the calls they never returned, for the way they watched you crumble and still walked away. So instead, they fake it, loudly, publicly, desperately. They move on fast, hoping the next person will erase your memory. Spoiler alert, it won't, because you didn't just occupy space, you shifted it. You left fingerprints on parts of their life they never knew existed, and no amount of pretending can bleach those stains. And let's flip the script for a second. Why does their pretending still hurt you? Why does their silence still echo so loudly in your chest? Because you gave them something sacred. You made them feel safe enough to unravel, and in return they left you tangled. You weren't asking for much, just honesty, effort, emotional presence. But they couldn't give that, not because you asked for too much, but because they were operating from too little. So now they dress the wound with distractions, and you sit here wondering if they ever cared. They did. They just didn't know how to care without destroying the thing that made them feel vulnerable. That's not love, that's survival. And survival isn't romantic, it's chaotic, it's selfish. It leaves wreckage, and now that you're out of the rubble, you can finally see the truth. You were the calm, they were the storm. And they didn't appreciate you until the storm passed, and they were left with silence. Not your silence, their own. Say it in the comments. Their silence doesn't erase my impact. Type it. Believe it. Let it remind you that just because they won't say it doesn't mean they don't feel it. Just because they post like they're fine doesn't mean their nights are peaceful. And just because they walked away doesn't mean they've moved on. You are not the one who's empty. You are not the one who lost something irreplaceable. You were the irreplaceable. And now they get to live in a world without your presence. And that's a consequence no post can cover up. Stay with me. Because next, we're not just watching them spiral, we're reclaiming your power by becoming someone so at peace, so grounded, that even their return wouldn't shake you. Not because you're bitter, but because you've healed. And that kind of peace, that's what haunts them most. Number 7. A Stoic doesn't announce their exit, they embody it. Power is not in walking away loud. It's in leaving quietly and never looking back. You don't need to make noise when you leave. You don't need to post cryptic captions, slam doors, or burn bridges in front of an audience. That's not power, that's theater. And a Stoic doesn't perform. A Stoic transforms, quietly, internally, deeply. While they're expecting fireworks, you hand them silence. While they're bracing for one final emotional outburst, you've already packed your piece and disappeared. And that kind of exit, it shakes people in a way loud goodbyes never could. Because here's what they expected. The usual. A breakdown, a long message, a desperate call, a confrontation that made them feel like the victim. They were ready for the storm, but not the stillness. They were ready to argue, not to be ignored. Because when someone's used to your access, when they're used to you reaching, fixing, explaining, your silence becomes a mirror that doesn't speak, doesn't plead, doesn't justify. It just reflects. And reflection is terrifying to someone who's built their comfort on your chaos. You weren't the one who needed to prove anything. You were the one who gave too much for too long. And now you've simply stopped, not to punish, but to protect. Because you realized your energy is sacred, your attention is valuable, and not everyone is worthy of it. You used to pour oceans into people who wouldn't even hand you a cup. You used to dim your fire just to keep others warm. But that version of you, they're gone. Not bitter, not broken, just done. This is the new you, the quiet you, the unbothered you, the you that doesn't chase, doesn't cling, doesn't ask why someone stopped showing up. Because now you understand, when people disappear, it's not your job to go looking. It's your opportunity to go within. And in that silence, you didn't fall apart. You fell into yourself. There's a moment that happens when you detach, not out of revenge, but out of rebirth. When you stop trying to convince someone you were enough and start becoming everything you needed all along. That's what you did. You stopped needing their words to validate your experience. You stopped needing their closure to breathe again. You stopped needing their presence to feel whole. And that's what shook them. Not the block, not the goodbye, but the complete and total absence of your energy where it used to flood their world. Imagine this, a room full of people, all talking, laughing, moving, and suddenly one soul stands up and walks away. No speech, no drama, just leaves. That silence, it spreads, it makes everyone turn their heads. That's you. You didn't need to explain. You didn't need to scream. You just stopped participating in the performance, and now your absence is the loudest voice in the room. They thought you'd always be there. They thought you'd always answer, always care. But what they didn't realize is that even the kindest souls have limits, and you found yours, quietly, with dignity, with grace. You left not to hurt them, but to finally honor yourself. And that decision, that's what they'll remember, long after the texts stop, long after the distractions fade, long after they pretend it didn't matter. They'll remember the one who didn't need to say goodbye to be gone forever. So don't second-guess your silence. Don't wonder if you should have said more. You said enough just by leaving without needing to be seen. You didn't walk away weak. You walked away free, free from the cycles, free from the confusion, free from the weight of proving your worth to someone who never deserved to hold it in the first place. Let your silence speak. Let your distance teach. Let your peace become your new voice. You don't owe anyone the performance of pain. You owe yourself the protection of peace. Say it in the comments. I leave in silence, and I rise in peace. Write it. Own it. Let the world see who you are now, not because you're trying to show off, but because you finally see it for yourself. And if this message hit your soul, if you felt the shift in your bones, then this isn't just the end of a chapter. It's the beginning of your becoming. So like this video, subscribe for more truth that doesn't sugarcoat, and share it with someone who's still waiting for closure from a door that's already locked. Because this time, your silence isn't sadness, it's your rebirth, and they'll never get access to this version of you again.